Violent anti-government protests have broken out on the streets of Albania's capital. Thousands of people gathered in the main square demanding the resignation of the Deputy Prime Minister for alleged corruption. Some demonstrators threw petrol bombs at a government building before police responded with a water cannon. Well, journalist Alice Taylor joins us now from Tirana. Alice, can you bring us up to date firstly on the protests? How tense have they been?
Well, this is the third protest to have taken place since December. We're looking at a frequency of one a month, and the organisers have said that these will continue. However, I think it's important to say that these are political protests, not civil society protests. This is not members of the public sort of organising themselves and taking to the streets. This is a protest organised by a political party who are currently in opposition. There may be some members of the public amongst them, but the majority of the people taking part are those who are affiliated with this party. Things are tense. It's expected to continue like this, but it's not the first time we've seen protests like this, and it's not going to be the last either. But yesterday, I mean, it's sad to see there were 21 arrests, 19 police were injured. Some were taken to hospital with burns and other injuries caused by molotov cocktails, which is really a shocking thing to see, even for me as a journalist. But yeah, the Democratic Party that have organised this, they are saying, the Deputy Prime Minister, she needs to resign. She is corrupt. The government is corrupt. But we also have to consider that the leader of the Democratic Party is also under investigation for corruption and has been on house arrest as part of an investigation. So it's a matter of, these parties are trading barbs, but at the end of the day, they're all implicated in similar goings on.
Yeah, we're looking at some of the protest pictures here and they appear to be turning quite violent. How are authorities handling the situation there?
Well, we had around 1,000 police officers on the street yesterday. The main boulevard of the city was closed all day in preparation. Obviously, they wanted to secure the area and make sure nobody was, putting anything potentially more problematic there. I think it's difficult, the police are, imagine being faced by thousands of people throwing Molotov cocktails, setting fire to things. The police also seized around 30 Molotov cocktails as well. We saw in the previous protest that there was one protester in a balaclava with a kind of launcher that was firing fireworks into the crowd. I think using Molotov cocktails has always been something used in Albanian protests, and they tend to look extremely dramatic. But as long as there's no one in the firing line, they don't do a huge amount of damage, if they're up against a stone building. But what we've seen in the last couple of protests is real injuries where members of the police who are not involved in this political infighting are being injured. And this is where it becomes problematic. I'm all for protesting. I don't think a couple of Molotov cocktails here or there do much damage apart from harming the reputation of Albania. But I think we really have to be careful when it involves members of the public property, and people who are there to protect everybody.
And what are protesters demanding? What are their specific calls?
Yeah. So the Deputy Prime Minister has been under investigation for alleged corruption. They're calling for her immunity to be lifted and for her to be arrested. They're calling for the removal of the government. But again, this is something that's quite often called for. We want a technical government. We want a new vote. It's all around allegations of corruption. Albania recently went through a judicial reform which saw the establishment of an independent prosecution body, which has a specific aim of investigating and prosecuting high-level officials. And as a result of this process, the mayor of Tirana is currently in prison awaiting trial. The former president and prime minister Ilia Meta he's from the opposition. He is in prison awaiting trial. We've seen many members of all political parties either investigated or imprisoned. So this body is doing its job. The fact that people are being investigated, the leader of the opposition, the deputy prime minister, it shows that justice is turning. For me as a journalist, I see both sides as suffering equally from this in terms of allegations of corruption and people being imprisoned. But the way I see it, at least these investigations are happening. Years ago in Albania, these sort of things would not have happened. They wouldn't have seen the light of day. People in power would not have faced justice for corruption. So at least we are seeing things actually happen. In terms of these protests, I don't think this is the way to achieve things, and I think it does a lot of harm to Albania's reputation, which is, yeah, not necessary.
So how long more do you think these demonstrations will likely continue?
So Sali Berisha, who is the head of the opposition, he said that they will continue indefinitely. We've seen protests like this before. There was some in 2019 where they mobilized massive crowds. And again, the last three protests that we've seen, the crowds have been very big, thousands of people, which is not what we normally see. The last time we saw crowds of this type was in 2019. But what happened after a while is they died out. I don't know if that's going to happen this time. I don't see it realistic that they will overthrow the government. I really don't see this as something that's going to happen. The government has a large support from the electorate, from the international community. Albania is progressing towards EU membership very quickly, hopefully by 2030. I don't see a change of regime as likely to happen. So either they will just continue indefinitely or they will fizzle out. I hope the wheels of justice will keep turning and all of those involved in corruption will face the consequences of their actions.
Alice, really interesting to talk. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.